Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. On tonight's programme, I'll be talking to Tony Jewett of Grimsby Fishermans Mission, and we'll have news of all the local sport. But first, it's over to James Dunn for the news headlines.
Hello, in the headlines today, show your support for the forces, and a new craze is ploughing through Lincolnshire's villages. Organisers of the Armed Forces Weekend in Cleethorpes want people to line the streets and show your support for those currently serving, the fallen and their families. The parade goes through Cleethorpes tomorrow, and on Sunday Meridian Park will host a family fun day. The sacrifice made by soldiers hasn't been far from the headlines this year as we commemorate the centenary of the outbreak of World War I. But organisers say it will be a huge boost for those currently serving and their families.
Armed Forces Day isn't about remembrance or anything like that. It's about celebration and showing the support, not just to the men and women of the armed forces, but their family as well. A lot of people forget about they're the ones that are left behind with the kids. The parents are away, serving a country, whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan, even in the Falklands.
East Lindsey District Councillors said they need to conduct public consultations more effectively while discussing the sale of Louth livestock market. An overview committee met this week to review the final scrutiny report on the controversial sale of the market. But the appendices containing vital facts were not ready in time, so the committee couldn't analyse the situation properly. It led to criticism from councillors over how consultations are conducted, and many remain concerned over the details of a replacement market that the council has promised to build if it sells off the current one.
The appendices, although they've been mentioned a lot today, are appendices of fact. They're reports and results of the consultation that, yes, people ideally would have had them today, but we've put, as you know, this meeting in as an extra meeting to give 2 weeks extra to prepare the report. As I said earlier, I think it's one that you could keep moving the timescales back on. You could keep adding appendices and chapters, etc. But ultimately there has to be a cut-off point, and you have to say that's where we're going to be.
Members need to exercise caution when they make the decision on the 23rd of July as to whether to sell the land or not, because at that point they will not know the final cost of any facility, they won't know the final location of any facility, they won't know the specification of it, they will not who is going to run it. There is the danger that that some months down the line an argument could be put forward that it's not commercially viable, or there is nobody to run it, and it's not built.
The Michael Corden Charitable Foundation is holding an event to raise money for sufferers of pancreatic cancer this Saturday. Michael was diagnosed with the disease in April 2010 and sadly passed away in December 2012. His wife Jane is now a director of the foundation.
Pancreatic cancer is the 5th largest cancer killer in the UK. It receives only 1% of the National Cancer Research funding. The survival rates over the last 40 years haven't changed, so it's absolutely imperative that we try and find a way of detecting this cancer early, because unfortunately for most people who get it, by the time the symptoms are actually present themselves, it's too late. We've got an event at the Humber Royal on Saturday. It starts at 7:30 and it's a ball with entertainment, and we've got Curtain Up Productions, which are a local Grimsby theatre group, and they're going to be doing the entertainment for us, and it's all about the musicals.
The Great Limber Tractor Run takes place this Sunday. Now in its 3rd year, the event has grown from strength to strength and sees many vintage tractors take to the Lincolnshire lanes for charity. Organiser Sam Atkinson expects 50 to take part this year, but is encouraging others to join in. With a growing interest in vintage farming machinery, many villages are putting road runs on.
I think it's more of a social thing really. People like to see things that are old that are still being used, and we do it for charity. For us it's a nice way to get everybody together, not just for the local community, but to raise a bit of money, have some fun, and people enjoy seeing them and people enjoy working on them. We raise funds for Links Air Ambulance and our local village hall. We think it's a great charity to support. You never know when you're going to need the air ambulance.
But if you're looking for something more exotic, Grimsby's Samurai Hearts are celebrating their 2nd birthday tomorrow. They're holding martial arts demonstrations from 10 till 4 at their base on Freeman Street, and there'll be food from Japan and Thailand as well. Well, that's all from me. Bye for now.
The Fishermans Mission in Grimsby has been looking after the town's seafarers for more than 130 years. 40 years after the fishing industry collapsed, it still has work to do. Tony Jewett joins me from the mission. Tony, thanks for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome here.
What exactly is the Fisherman's Mission doing these days?
Well, the Fishermans Mission, obviously, all those years ago, it was involved heavily with the active fleet. But of course, now, with the demise in the industry in the 70s, our role now is more of a support network to the welfare of fishermen in and around the Grimsby communities. So we're there really to help them practically, financially, and support them with any medical equipment that they may need, just to really trying to make life a little bit easier for them, because obviously when they were out fishing all them years ago, there was a lot of, the bad weather would get through to the bones, and they'd have skeletal problems and mobility issues. So all of those issues now are coming to fruition, and they need support from us with things like recliner beds or wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs, or just general support.
Well, the people who are going to sea in the heyday of the industry from the East Coast, from the Humber region, they're getting on a bit now, aren't they? I mean, it's fairly ancient. Yeah,
well, I mean, we have around 933 fishermen on our books at the Grimsby Fishermans Mission, and I would say the ages vary really. We have some from around about 50s right through to 80s and a couple in their 90s, but I would say the majority now are in their 70s. So yes, they're definitely moving on in years.
There's 3 or 4 decades have passed since the fleet was really a serious employer, and that's 3 or 4 decades ago. It was half a working lifetime ago, or more than that for somebody now in their 70s. What have they been doing with the second halves of their careers?
Well, sadly, and generally speaking now, because some of them would have gone on to the merchant side of things, onto the standby boats servicing the rigs, but that would be a small proportion. Generally speaking, and this is purely a personal view from what my experience is with the mission, is that the majority of them haven't really found work because there just isn't work, because their skill is fishing and anything associated with fishing. So although a lot of them went into the onto the standbys, a few would have gone through into the factory processing and become filleters, and a few would have found various other bits. However, the majority, I would say, were unsuccessful in finding work because they had no skills, nor were they at the time of life or at that age looking to learn new skills as well. So it's a very difficult period. So a lot of them are just really sat at home twiddling their thumbs.
You look after a large number of people who you protect, but as you say, there's the tempus fugit. It's an ageing population. There's going to come a point where the Fisherman's Mission has no further purpose.
In its current format, I would say that's absolutely right. If the Fisherman's Mission didn't change, then within the next, and again this is my personal view, in the next 20 to 25 years, there wouldn't be need for a Fisherman's Mission. However, the mission is looking to reach out into maybe other seafaring sectors, so it could diversify and help support missions like the Apostleship of the Sea, the Seafarers, Mission to Seafarers, etc., etc., because there are still missions out there involved with seafaring. It's just that at the moment the Fisherman's Mission is the only charity that services the fishing communities.
And you have to have been a former fisherman to benefit from it at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you needed to have been a fisherman or be a dependent of a fisherman to benefit from the mission, yes.
I mentioned a little earlier that the mission is old. What's its history?
Well, 1880. It was 1880 that a guy called Ebenezer Mather,
wonderful Victorian name.
An amazing name, isn't it? But he, with a friend, he wanted to go out into the sea. He was a Christian guy. Wanted to go out into the sea to see what happened, basically, and the conditions that the fishing communities had to endure at sea. So he went out onto what they called a small blue fleet. It was around about the Great Yarmouth area. And he went out on a friend's boat, and he went out for 6 weeks. And having seen the conditions and everything that the fishing fleets were enduring in them days, because of course there were no toilets or anything like that. So I mean, and it was just horrendous. He came back and he thought, I've got to do something about this. And so he actually purchased a small boat, and he went out to go into the fleets to support the fishermen within the fleets at sea by ways of maybe giving them tobacco, Bibles, of course, because it was a Christian, warm clothing, stuff like that. So provisions at sea, really. So he'd be like
Baccy and Bibles, exactly what you need to stay healthy in a small freezing ship.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of skippers wouldn't go out without one in the wheelhouse, of course.
Well, and you've had little experience of going to sea as a fisherman yourself, an ex-Royal Navy man, but you've been a fisherman too?
Yes. Well, yeah, I had 6 days with the Jubilee Quest in the January time, and that was an experience.
That was rough enough. Just
yes.
very quickly, whereabouts is the Fisherman's Mission based now?
We are based at the Resource Centre in Kent Street, and we're sort of, so it's right in the heart of the East Marsh.
And that's how to contact
Yes.
you. Tony, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And here is Dan Kemp with all the sport.
Thank you, Hugh. We'll start at Wimbledon, where Lincoln's Dan Cox suffered a first-round loss to France's Jeremy Chardy. The 42nd seed needed 4 sets to beat Cox, 6-3, 7-6, 6-7, 6-3. Despite being ranked 215th in the world, Dan matched his opponent for long periods of the match, which will give him optimism for the future. It was a similar story for Tickton's Kyle Edmund, who also suffered defeat in the first round, this time against Austrian Andreas Heider-Maurer. Again, the tie was decided over 4 sets, 6-3, 7-6, 7-4, 6-2. Despite the obvious disappointment of losing, Kyle felt it was a great experience for someone aged just 19. Kyle can now also call upon the guidance of former US Open runner-up Greg Rosetsky as his new coach. Hull City's transfer window is starting to hot up. After we brought you news of Jake Livermore's permanent move from Tottenham for £7 million rising to 8 after add-ons, it now appears that the same fee could be paid to Norwich City for their wide man Robert Snodgrass. We understand the Scotland international has been subject to an accepted bid by the Tigers and that he's set for a medical at the KC. Grimsby Town this week brought back former goalkeeper Paul Crichton in as goalkeeping coach to help James McKeown and replace Steve Crowdson, who joined Hull City earlier this summer. It's hoped the coaching experience Paul gained whilst at Norwich City and more recently Huddersfield Town will help McKeown improve his game. Paul himself played 133 games between 1993 and 1996 for the Mariners. Hull Kingston Rovers have officially unveiled the name of their new North Stand. It'll be named after club president Colin Hutton, who was in charge of the club for 14 years from 1957. Hutton had an impressive career which included coaching the 1968 Rugby League World Cup side to glory and the awarding of the Freedom of the City last year. Finally, in cricket, Yorkshire have back-to-back T20 games this weekend. Tonight they host bitter rivals Lancashire at Headingley, and on Saturday they play Nottinghamshire at Trent Bridge. That's all for the sport. Back to you, Hugh.
That's all we have time for tonight. If you have a story for us, please email news@estuary.tv or contact us via our Twitter or Facebook pages or give us a call on 01472 31 5561. Until tomorrow, goodbye.